Hello and welcome to Newsweek South Asia, a program that exposes Pakistan's role and nexus in promoting global terrorism and its funding. Here are the headlines. Despite change of guard, Pakistan continues to create trouble in Jammu and Kashmir. India-Pakistan ministers to meet at UNGA, but no resumption of dialogue. India slams Pakistan UNHRC Commissioner for legitimizing Pakistan's terrorism in Kashmir report. And FATF body unsatisfied with Pakistan's counter-terrorism policies. The world may have expected Pakistan to cease supporting terrorism in the region after the change of guards, but its subversive activities in Jammu and Kashmir clearly indicate that Islamabad and its newly elected Prime Minister Imran Khan remain under the control of Pakistani army and its agency, which uses terrorism as a mean of foreign policy. Newsweek South Asia has a report.
The week saw several examples that once again established that Pakistan remains a hotbed of terrorism as its soil is being used to promote anarchy in the region. The killing of Indian Jawan Narendra Kumar, who was part of the Border Security Force patrolling party, was dragged into the Pakistani side by intruders and later his body thrown back into the Indian side in mutilated condition shows that nothing has changed in Imran Khan-led Pakistan.
Pakistan has to be taught a lesson. The retribution must be very, very strong and of the variety that Pakistan never ever dares do a thing like this ever again.
The amount of torture inflicted on the martyr Narendra Kumar reminds of the kind of barbarity shown by the Pakistani troops to Captain Saurav Kalia before the Kargil War in 1999. In a statement, BSF confirmed Kumar's death and said he was part of a patrol party that came under fire while clearing tall grass close to the boundary.
He was killed by the Pakistani troops and his body was mutilated. Now you see, here you do all these inhuman things and then you talk of peace with India. This is not going to be done. It is a very correct statement made by the wife of Hemraj, whose head was taken away by the Pakistanis, that we require retribution and India should definitely give a very, very strong reply to Pakistan regarding all such incidents.
Another gory example of the intent of Pakistan-backed terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir was witnessed in Kulgam district of the state. This time the victim was an army soldier and a local Lance Naik Mukhtar Ahmed. Ahmed was on leave to perform last rites of his son. According to reports, terrorists entered the house in disguise of reporters. One of the terrorists was recording footage from the mobile phone. Once they came face to face with Mukhtar, they shot him and ran away. Mukhtar was rushed to the hospital where he was declared brought dead. Responding to a question about the change in Pakistan under Imran Khan, the Minister of State for External Affairs V.K. Singh rightly pointed out the vulnerability of Pakistan's new Prime Minister.
If a person is propped up by the army still rules. So, let's wait and watch how things go, whether a person remains under army control or doesn't remain under.
In later part of the week, Indian security forces gained success when they killed a militant in Bandipora district of the state. The encounter broke out when the security forces launched a search operation after receiving specific inputs about the presence of militants in Sub-Babag area of the district, during which the terrorists opened fire and one of them was gunned down. Jammu and Kashmir is heading for October local body polls and the security apparatus is trying their best to not let Pakistan vitiate the atmosphere and stop residents from exercising their democratic right of voting.
Every month it says that Pakistan-based terror outfits are working in the subcontinents. They are a threat to the subcontinents. Haqqani network is there. You have the Jundullah in Iran. And you have the terrorist activities that they're carrying out in India. So, you see, Pakistan is a branded terror country. The whole world knows it.
Pakistan, a country ruled by fundamentalism and terrorism, remains engrossed in activities that do not have any place in the modern world. Such an environment doesn't regard democracy as a mean to serve people. The last election in Pakistan too has been in question, where many reports cited Imran Khan a favourite of General months before voting. Imran Khan is favoured in Rawalpindi, the army headquarters, because of his religious fundamentalist views that are often considered as a basic reason behind the breeding of terrorism.
India took another shot with the Pakistan administration to establish peace between the two nations. India accepted the invitation for holding a meeting on issues that have been affecting both the nations on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. We have a report.
India's Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj will meet her Pakistani counterpart Shah Mahmood Qureshi during the United Nations General Assembly in New York. The spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs, Ravish Kumar, held a press conference in New Delhi to confirm the news and indicated that the meeting is taking place on Pakistan's request and the date was being finalized by the permanent missions of the two countries in New York.
The letter which we have received, which all of you have seen, is in response to that letter, which was handed over to us by the High Commissioner of Pakistan in India on 17th September. At the same time, on the same day, another letter was handed over from the Pakistani Foreign Minister to our External Affairs Minister, basically reiterating Prime Minister of Pakistan's proposal for a meeting between the External Affairs Minister and Pakistani Foreign Minister on the sidelines of the upcoming United Nations General Assembly session.
India's response to Pakistan came within hours of the news that Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan proposed talks between him and his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi. The Ministry of External Affairs said that the talks would aim at a broader scheme of dialogue. The MES spokesperson also went on to emphasize the stand made by India that terror and talks cannot go together.
I must distinguish between a meeting and a dialogue. This should not be confused with a resumption of any dialogue. This is a meeting which we have agreed to based on a request which we have got from the Pakistani side. This does not indicate any change in the policy as far as our stand on terrorism and cross-border terrorism is concerned.
If it goes through, this would be the first such high-level engagement since the suspension of dialogue between the two countries following the Pathankot air-based terror attack in 2016. Swaraj will leave for New York on September 24. The general debate will commence on September 25 and will run for 9 working days. Swaraj and her Pakistan counterpart Qureshi are also scheduled to attend the SAARC foreign ministers' lunch and get-together on September 27.
The fact that the two foreign ministers of India and Pakistan will meet on the sidelines of the UNGA in New York on the 26th of September, to my mind, is a slender but positive development. The reason or the logic being that this is the first ministerial meeting between India and Pakistan after Mr. Imran Khan has taken over as the Prime Minister. Now, we are aware that there are a number of areas of discord, tension, hostility between India and Pakistan. And the whole challenge of terrorism as India sees it has been aggravated, to my mind, by two developments. One is the lack of progress as far as Mumbai 2008 is concerned, and within Pakistan the kind of space that has been accorded to a man like Hafiz Saeed. That is one big issue. More immediately, we have had this case of the mutilation of the body of Indian BSF soldier. Now, that again is something that has aggravated and caused an enormous amount of anger within India.
This acceptance for talks yet again proves the fact that despite the malicious and satanic designs set by Pakistan to create tension in India, New Delhi has always been on the quest to find peace and harmony. The relations between the two countries hit an all-time low after the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks, and tensions have escalated after repeated ceasefire violations, infiltrations and attacks in the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, where Pakistan has been attempting to create a proxy war. According to latest media reports, the meeting between the foreign ministers of India and Pakistan has been called off.
India, a victim of terrorism sponsored by Pakistan, gave a befitting reply after the UNHRC commissioner stated that human rights violations have been occurring in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and also it has been carried out by security forces in a report released recently. European academics and experts too targeted Pakistan for sponsoring terrorism while highlighting factual and analytical errors of report on Jammu and Kashmir by UNHRC at Geneva. We have a report.
Pakistan, which has a notorious reputation of being a global sponsor of terrorism in the world, was slammed in the 39th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva for its continuous attempts to sponsoring of terrorist groups which create havoc in the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir since 1989. On June 14 this year, the UNHRC published a biased report which mentioned that the Indian security forces have used excessive force in Kashmir and killed and wounded numerous civilians since 2016. India directly targeted the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zaid Ra'ad Al Hussein, after he called on Human Rights Council to set up an international investigation following the release of the UN report on human rights violation in Kashmir. UN had called for an international inquiry into the alleged violations in the disputed territory. The report was low on facts and was likely a product of China-Pakistan connivance. At the time, the Indian Ministry of External Affairs said that the UN report on the human rights situation in the province violates India's sovereignty and integrity and declared that India will continue to take measures to deal with cross-border terrorism in Kashmir. The report was slammed and criticized by many experts around the globe for its narrow view on the Kashmir issue.
India exercises its right of reply to the statement made by Pakistan under this agenda. We reject Pakistan's continued reference to the fallacious and motivated report, which India has outrightly rejected. We deplore Pakistan's repeated and malicious propaganda to distract the world from its gross violation of human rights, especially in the territories under its control.
At the 38th session of the Human Rights Council in Geneva last year, India called upon UN to reject the efforts made by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights to legitimize terrorism and call for India's dismemberment through the recent report on Kashmir in defiance of the very definition of terror outlined by the global body.
The Council may note that concerns have been raised by the international community on the absence of constitutional and civil rights of the people of Gilgit-Baltistan and their sufferings due to the deliberate economic policies causing extreme poverty, gross underdevelopment and economic hardships, large-scale repression, enforced disappearances, and extrajudicial killings continue with impunity in Sindh, Baluchistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
This year, an event was organized titled Preventing and Combating Growing Terrorism in South Asia, which was chaired by Dr. Paul Stott, lecturer at the University of Leicester in the Center for International Studies and Diplomacy at the SOAS, discussed a range of issues primarily focusing on Pakistan's strategic interests and the flaws of the recent report on Jammu and Kashmir by the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR. The meeting saw discussions on the number of analytical and methodological flaws of the published report and the implications that had not been expressed well, as the report only manages to cover the period of June 2016 to April 2018.
Historically, there was a lot of errors in the report, particularly historically, as he didn't really seem to have grasped that many of the terrorist organisations operating in Indian Kashmir are really proxy organisations for the Pakistan state, and as such are given really their lifeblood by that nation state. Terrorist groups in the very long term don't tend to prosper unless they have a safe haven or have some degree of support, connivance from nation states.
key issue also raised during the discussion was a lack of proper terminology used for terror groups and organizations in the report. The OCHCR report on Kashmir, which has the mention of armed groups instead of terror groups. The speaker even went on to highlight an immense understatement of the different terror groups' action in the region and stress that ironically the UNOHCHR report referred to groups such as the Hizbul Mujahideen, Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Jaish Mohammad as armed groups, which are designated as terrorist organizations by the United Nations.
Just 3 months after the Intergovernmental Organization Financial Action Task Force or the FATF placed Pakistan back on its grey list, another international anti-money laundering body, Asia Pacific Policy Group, has expressed its dissatisfaction with the approach of Pakistan in countering terrorism from its soil. Newsweek South Asia has a report.
Pakistan, a state which is known all over the world for providing a safe haven and support to dreaded terrorists and also providing resources and training to their terror organizations, have caused a lot of harm and misery throughout the world, especially in India and Afghanistan. In the month of June this year, the Global Money Laundering and Anti-Terror Financing Watchdog, Financial Action Task Force or the FATF, announced in its plenary meeting that Pakistan would again be placed back on its grey list as it had failed to take control of terror financing. Pakistan was earlier placed in the grey list in the year 2012 to 2015. A review of the Asia Pacific Policy Group APPG, which is related to the FATF, said that not much has been achieved by Pakistan, especially on the legal side, like seizing militant group infrastructure, freezing of assets and attachment of funds. The body also reviewed Pakistan's action on choking funds of militant groups, something Islamabad had submitted in its action plan.
This is a big setback for the newly elected Imran Khan, Prime Minister of Pakistan, since he is looking out to the world bodies to have multilateral funding as their country is in dire needs of funds, foreign exchange and all. Now, till such time, the Pakistan government does not take action on those 26 points and hard actions, there is all a danger that in the next review meeting of the APPG, that is somewhere around December, they are going to be putting Pakistan on the watch list and may be declaring Pakistan as a state which is not compliant with anti-terror funding and not complying with the FATF guidelines.
Last month, the APPG team visited Islamabad to assess legal and administrative arrangements for the implementing the Financial Action Task Force recommendations for curbing money laundering and terrorism financing. During the third day of the visit, the APPG team discussed the status of implementation of the FATF recommendations on supervision of financial institutions, challenges posed by beneficial ownership and trusts, the targeted financial sanctions against terrorism, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and mutual legal assistance and extradition. Media reports say that the officials said the APPG team also expressed concerns about the implementing recommendations on extradition of criminals involved in money laundering and terrorism financing. Pakistan, which was the complaint on a 26-point action, was looked into and reviewed by the APPG. These were the same reports which were submitted to the FATF to choke the funds that were being provided to terror outfits present in the country, especially the Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Pakistan Taliban. As in now, common knowledge, the FATF has had its eye on Pakistan for some time, giving the country due warning that its conduct could come under severe scrutiny and the result in its eventual blacklisting if it did not mend its ways. During this time, the government of Pakistan changed, but nothing else did. The development has come as a major setback for the newly elected Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan, who was hoping that the intergovernmental body will be lenient in its review. The APPG, according to the official sources, will report the unsatisfactory performance by Pakistan to the FATF at its plenary meeting in Paris in October 2018.
Now, this is what FATF is coming out with, and they are saying that in case now Pakistan cannot really comply with all the 26 points that were given to them, they will have no other option but to declare Pakistan as a terrorist state. Now, if that happens, and it is very sure that is going to happen, because all the countries, especially the US, UK, France, they are behind this FATF guidelines being issued to Pakistan, because they are the ones who are now in danger of getting the militants coming over there, and especially the money laundering that is going on from their side to the Pakistan area. So therefore, Pakistan will now have to really sit down and think whether they would like to comply with the guidelines or they would risk getting branded as a terrorist state.
The truth on the ground is entirely different. Till date, the National Counter-Terrorism Agency of Pakistan, which is supposedly the central body meant to act against terrorism, lists the Jamaat-ud-Dawa and its charitable front, the Falah-e-Insaniyat, as under watch, even though both the groups are listed as terrorist organizations in the United Nations Security Council's list of prescribed organizations and individuals. Hafiz Saeed is on that list too, but that too did not stop the LET from contesting the elections. For years now, India has been the victim of the malicious designs and plots of the Pakistan-backed terror outfits. Be it the attacks on the parliament, Mumbai, or the continuous attempts of creating a proxy war in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistan has over the years tried to create a tense atmosphere in India.
The militants inside Pakistan might stage a coup. They might get together and stage a coup against the army and Pakistani government and take control of Pakistan on its own. So both these things are very frightening aspects, and therefore it is very imperative on the Pakistan government, the army and the ISI to really take action on the guidelines that they themselves have submitted to FATF and try to ensure that they do not get branded as a terrorist state.
Be it the Haqqani Network, Al-Qaeda or the Taliban, there are many terror outfits operating from Pakistan's soil. Before the FATF meeting earlier this year, Pakistan's government amended the anti-terror legislation through an ordinance to include UN-designated individuals and groups in the national listing, prescribed outfits and persons. Evidently, these actions did not satisfy the FATF.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We will be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Surbhi Sharma signing off on the behalf of entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.